Logotherapy is a type of couples counseling based on a book called Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendricks. And I'm also the author of What's Eating You, a workbook for teens who have trouble with food. And I just wrote a book called Getting the Sex You Want, which will be out April 1st, which I'll send you an advance copy if you want. And I primarily focus in my private practice on working with sex, intimacy, and connection in relationships. And actually I just got back from Vienna, where I spoke to people from 14 different countries about sex. And it was fascinating. Most of them were therapists or psychotherapists of some kind. And I was training them to talk to people about how to communicate about sex. And what I found across the board is that in all those countries, regardless of how open they are or comfortable in their bodies, the one thing that everybody has in common around the world is that we don't talk about sex. We don't know how to communicate about sex, particularly with the person we're having sex with. So I've made it sort of my personal mission to teach people how to talk about sexuality and how to communicate their desires and their needs. And I really relished the challenge of hosting a show where I could bring teenagers together with their parents to begin the process of sort of educating the world or changing the way that we talk about sex. And one of the things I do with my workshops, whether it's my weekly workshop at a very nice destination spa, or if it's my weekend workshops with couples, or in my individual sessions with people, one of the things I really like to do, and I do this in all my talks, is teach people about sexual anatomy. And I really find it fascinating because even myself, who I think I'm the sexpert goddess of sex, I really didn't know a lot of the new research about sex. And so when I tell people about this, what I'd like to do is keep it in terms of, none of us gets a map for each other's bodies. None of us gets a manual when we get in a relationship. And so a lot of education around increasing the connection or the passion in a relationship or the communication begins with knowing about your body. And interestingly, you'll know, I can leave these glasses on or off by the way, but you'll know about sex education because you probably had some in middle school. They actually do it in 6th grade. My son is in 6th grade, so I know this intimately. And what they do is they take the boys and the girls and they separate them. And the boys, they say, this is your sex education. 1, you're going to get nocturnal emissions. And 2, you may masturbate depending on your religion. And then they separate out the girls and they tell them 2 things. 1, you're going to get your period and it's going to suck for the rest of your life. And 2, always say no because sex will kill you. And then they send them on their way back to math class, which I find interesting. But what they never address for either boy or girl classes is this issue of desire. Like, what do you do when you want to have sex with the kid next to you in your math class? And where do you go with those feelings and that information? That part we never talk about. And we don't talk about what to do once we're old enough to be in a really sexually intense relationship. It's very hard for kids to talk to their parents about what to do and how to do it. It's hard for girls to recognize and understand their own body signals. Boys have what my son, when he was a toddler, called a pop-up timer. So they know when they're sexually ready or interested. Girls have gotten a little more cut off from the signals in their body. Actually, girls start dieting now at the age of 10. So by the time we're adults, we've been on an average of 4 or 5 diets, most of us 20. And we've gotten so cut off from the feelings below our neck that we have no idea what we're even hungry for. We could be hungry for salad and diet soda, which is what we're supposed to be hungry for. Or we could be hungry for chocolate and ice cream, which happens sometimes that we don't understand. And I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but most of the women I know, and it starts around adolescence, have had the experience of standing in their kitchen and looking in the cabinets going, God, I know I want something. Could be chocolate, could be ice cream. I'm here to tell you, it's probably sex. And that because we've become so cut off from the signals of desire in our body that we really don't recognize a lot of times what's happening. And because as women we grow up without this language to describe what our needs are, we don't translate it to our partners. So we get into a relationship with a guy and we don't know how to tell them this is how you please us. But interestingly, men's number one sexual need is to please their partner. So if we're not teaching them how to make us happy, we're really depriving them of the opportunity to feel good in the relationship. So the beginning of this process is about sexual anatomy. And so I'm just going to use this as my demo. And hopefully, if you have questions, you'll call me.